Hi, everybody. Today we have Lance Kearse, founder of KaptainPlantit Ezherbal, an indie wellness and lifestyle brand, and ex-pro athlete and D1 basketball player at Virginia Commonwealth University. Lance, welcome to the Hemptress Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So today we have a super juicy episode. Lance has an incredible story to tell about his life as an athlete and how that snowballed into his life's work and his companies that he's created. We're going to dive deep into mental health, epigenetics, medical gaslighting, and curating personal freedom through wellness. Ready, Lance?
I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Lance was born ready. So first of all, I really wanted to get you guys to understand the journey that Lance has been on and how you started out as an athlete, what was your career like, and then how did that eventually lead into your business? Okay. So what got you to the point where you had enough with the system and went the other direction?
Yeah, the old coming out party, right?
The coming out party.
The going away from party, right?
Exactly.
So I was born and raised in Fort Myers, Florida. I'm also a Jamaican citizen as well. I just got my citizenship, like I mentioned earlier, a while back. I played sports growing up, had a whole family that played sports. Not everyone made it professionally. One before me made it professional in the NFL. And, I just had a path that I knew I had to take. And, the whole time I was playing sports, something was wrong. Something was off, right? I couldn't breathe properly.
Right.
My legs wouldn't work properly. Like, I would be the fastest and strongest guy in the team.
When did this start?
Early.
Like teenager?
No, 11, 12.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
10 years old, right? But it wasn't as severe. Like, it manifested itself originally in the form of just out of breath, right? And then I would cramp up. And then I couldn't move. Like, it was like practicing Mile High in like Denver, Colorado without a warm up. Like, you're just cold and you try to run and your legs just won't move as much, right? Then, high school, it got kind of worse. I would cramp up in games and throw up in games and stuff. Like, it's just a bunch of stuff. My mom used to have to rush me to the hospital after certain practices or whatnot. I would have abdomen cramps where just one ab will stick out. Like, it looked like something was crawling out of me. And then I went to college. And then that's where...
And you were recruited
to
play professional basketball in college.
Well, so from high school, I was recruited to play collegiate basketball. And that's where it went south, right? And then after that, of course, professional. But from high school, I go to Virginia Commonwealth University, and we were practicing in this gym that was 15 degrees hotter inside than it was outside. Okay. It's September, October, September, late August or early September or something like that when we have preseason conditioning. Now nobody does preseason conditioning because it's bizarre. Yeah, it's nonsense, right? It's like it doesn't determine if you could play better, right? Like, I guess it was like a threshold to see how much mental fortitude you had or something like that.
Does it get you in shape for the season or not really?
The only way to get in shape for basketball is to play basketball. Okay. You can't just sit up.
Just do like push-ups.
Yeah, or just run miles and stuff like that. Like, yeah, like you got to actually play the sport and you got to be within rhythm. So we practiced in this gym. It didn't have any central air and heat. And it wasn't like, the whole situation, practicing in that gym made it better. It was just one of those things. They just wanted to see what you were made out of. Yeah. Right. Something like the Army, like be all you can be and stuff like that. For sure. Right? I get it. And the air wasn't flowing. It was hot. There would be coaches that would come in and they would just stand on the outside because they didn't want to be inside because it was that hot. It was like we were playing in a sauna. And with sickle cell trait, can't do that. You got to be in good conditions. Like.
And what's the perfect condition?
The perfect condition is like not too hot, not too cold, not high altitude, not a lot of pressure in the air, right? It's, then for myself physically, I can't be sick. I can't have any, the rigorous activity has to be controlled, right? I can't be practicing every single day, balls to the wall. I would have to take time out to recover. And playing in those conditions really exacerbated the situation. Right. Yeah. So
what did you eventually discover was going on with your health?
Yeah. So at VCU, I cramp up, go to the hospital. I had a full body cramp, couldn't move. I was locked up. They rushed me to the hospital. Doctors were like, Lance, you're lucky. You could have died there. I was
Really?
like, yeah. They were like, yeah. There was like your CK level, your muscle breakdown level was high.
Wow.
You experienced rhabdomyolysis, right? And then I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. So what do I do next? I still want to play. Like, I'm an athlete. I'm a young kid. I'm 18 years old. I want to play and get to the NBA. They're like, well, we're gonna have to keep you over here overnight, and then you can resume practice within a month. What do you mean? Like, this is my freshman year. I'm good. Like, I gotta.
No way.
So before I couldn't finish conditioning. After taking a month off, I'm beating everybody in condition.
Damn.
So it was that with sickle cell, it's hard to recover.
Right.
So do you know the law of supercompensation? Mm-mm. Law of supercompensation. You have homeostasis is a straight line. Mm-hmm. Whenever you exercise, you dip into stress, right? Or, working out, it's a stress.
Right.
And then you got to recover from the stress. Mm-hmm. And then you go past homeostasis, it goes into compensation and supercompensation.
Okay.
So when you're exercising, when you're reading, when you're doing anything that's going to make you better, stress is an integral part of getting better, but perpetual stress is not an integral part of getting better.
You need the recovery.
You need the recovery, right?
Yeah.
So there's stress, recovery, and the supercompensation. What you want to do is you want to catch your body at supercompensation and then stress it again. So you move up. Eventually you plateau, but you want to be able to move throughout that cycle. So I wasn't moving throughout that cycle. I was in a perpetual state of stress. I was never back equilibrium.
Right.
And it took a month of break for me to get back to equilibrium. And I eventually started playing better. But those situations would come up because we would still practice extremely hard. Like, we were one of the worst defenses. Like, we played 94 feet. Like, we pressured teams. So we had to be in better condition than everybody else. And I know you may not know necessarily.
I was going to say, so you guys are like defense focused.
Yeah, we were.
Okay, I got that.
We were one of the best defenses in the country my freshman year. Right?
Which takes a huge amount of endurance and.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of work.
Don't worry, I'm a Bucks fan. I watch basketball.
Okay, a little.
When shit's heating up, I'm watching.
So one of my boys played for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Really?
Larry Sanders.
Which one?
Larry Sanders. Yeah. He played a while back. He played with me at VCU, and so. Throughout the season, I'm having these same issues. In the beginning of the year, they labeled it as that I had mono or Epstein-Barr.
Okay.
Then throughout the year, they're like, we think it's a muscle myopathy.
Mono. Is that what they used to call it?
Or
I remember because we were kids, it was like the kissing disease.
Yeah, something like that.
That's so
right?
funny, yeah. But now it's Epstein-Barr.
Yeah, so they said I had that.
Okay.
But then I was like,
I feel like that's the classic misdiagnosis where they're like, we don't know what's going on.
Mono.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's got to be Epstein-Barr.
It's the red herring, right?
Yeah.
It's the first thing they blame it on. And then they were like, oh, it's a muscle myopathy. So they took a piece of muscle out my leg, did a biopsy. I could show it.
To cut it out?
Yeah, I could show it to you if I didn't have on pants. It looks like a gunshot wound.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, but
was that recovery painful?
It was. They stapled it up.
Oh.
And I had to play with the staples in my leg.
Oh my God.
Someone hit it one time, just blood just ran down my leg.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. But that's collegiate sports, man. You're trying to make money.
Right.
And back then it was different because collegiate sports, kids couldn't get money. They couldn't make money outside of their stipends and their
Isn't that
Pell
still the
Grants.
case? Or are they able to capitalize, huh?
It changed.
Really?
Complete 180.
Really? I didn't know that.
So
I thought all the money goes to the university.
It did before.
Okay.
So last year it did still, right? But now kids can get NIL deals, name, image, likeness, NIL, right? So now
I remember this. Yeah.
You remember that, right?
Yeah.
So now they can get sponsors from like big sponsors like Nike or whoever, right?
Yeah.
And before you couldn't do that. So now they can get paid. So if they have, like, let's say Hemptress, if you want to sponsor an athlete, you can do that now.
Okay.
A year or two ago, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And now it just came out like a month ago or something like that. Players can get paid from the school. Like, they have to pay the players now from the school. They got to cut them a piece of.
Oh, really?
Now they have
they're
to.
So high grossing for the school. It's like, that makes sense.
They've always been high grossing.
Yeah, of course. It's
always.
like the main income stream for the school. Usually the football program or the basketball program or whatever it is.
Right?
Vandy, I think it was the baseball.
Yeah, we actually played against Vanderbilt, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We played against them. But my sophomore year. But yeah, so the fact that you're in this college and you have these coaches and you have a situation where you're not getting paid, it's like you're at their mercy.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you're broke, you can't do much, you don't have no say, because whoever has money, you have say. You don't have money, you shut up and do what we say, right?
And your career is quite literally in their hands.
Yes. Yeah. So you got to do whatever and say whatever. So they hire a psychiatrist, a psychologist. Psychologist is like, Lance, we don't know what's going on. I'm here to talk to you through it, right? They say they believe it's an anxiety situation. And, he helped me a little bit. Everybody has anxiety some way, somehow, right? But eventually they convinced him to tell me that whatever I was experiencing physically was a figment of my imagination.
Oh my
God.
God.
I wasn't going through that, all right? And this is my sophomore year. They prescribed me severe anxiety and depression medication.
Oh my God.
They prescribed me Celebrex for the pain. So the first one was Effexor, and then it was just too strong, so they cut it back to citalopram, and then Celebrex on top of that. So
the classic, give you a cocktail,
yeah.
and you're gonna treat the symptoms and the side effects of the first drug with the second drug.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And with sickle cell trait, it exacerbates all that.
How'd that make you feel?
Times two.
The symptoms got worse.
Times two. And the whole time I'm like, no, like, guys, like, this is not working. Like, I don't like it. Like, I was on it for like 2 months at this point. I was like, can I come off of it? They're like, no, you need to stay on it. And then actually, so we were in Mexico. We were in Cancun. We were playing against New Mexico in Mexico. And I didn't take the pills like that week leading up to the game. Had a great game. I was like, Coach, look, I did good. I don't need the pills. They're like, no, what are you doing? Like, you can't stop cold turkey.
That is actually true, though. It's dangerous to stop cold turkey.
I did. Yeah.
And you were fine.
No, I wasn't.
No, you weren't fine.
I wasn't fine. So what happened was they forced me to take the pills again. The next game we played against Vanderbilt.
Nice.
I had the worst game ever.
When you're taking the pills again.
Night and day.
And think of what that's doing to your body, too. It's just the dysregulation going up and down with these pills, and especially pills that you didn't even need.
Yeah, it was a situation where I thought that they didn't tell me the whole situation or how this thing worked. I'm 18 years old. I thought that if I felt better, I could come off of it.
Right.
Now, these are things that I had to be on forever almost.
Yeah.
Most people are on it for 10, 20, 15?
Long term.
Yeah, right.
Totally.
But, I didn't know. And then there was a situation where I was attempting to go against them with everything. I was like, guys, this is not working. I don't believe in it. This is trash. And at this time, they didn't know I had sickle cell trait. No one knew.
No one even thought to investigate.
Nope.
The part that's the most startling for me, first of all, 18 years old.
Yep.
Second of all, a team of adults that quite literally have your career in their hands are telling you that you're not feeling what you're feeling, that this is a figment of your imagination. So much so, and they were so confident with that theory that they put you on drugs with severe implications that were to control or to influence your mind. And then, of course, as we know nowadays, influence your body, your whole physiology, and your health. So they told an 18-year-old kid, you have to do this or else. You're cornered, and you're being told that you're not feeling what you're feeling, and your body isn't working the way that you thought it was, and it's in your head. Yeah. So to me, this whole situation, when I first met Lance, this was so startling to me because I've gone through something similar, and I was very lucky to receive the care of Dr. Aruna, who practices Psychiatry 2.0, which talks about the 3 pillars of disease: diet, trauma, toxins. And she looks holistically at the patient of what's going on. You didn't even have a mental health issue. You were fabricated out of thin air into believing that you had a mental health issue.
Yes.
Then you were giving feedback, hey, I don't feel good. I played my best game when I was off the pills. Hey, Lance, it's dangerous, says your coach or your team, to go off the pills so quickly. Okay, wean me off then. Give me support. I'm telling you what I need. And they wouldn't listen.
No, it's all about the money at the end of the day. Like it's, when it comes to, but that's collegiate sports. That's professional sports, right?
Right.
Collegiate sports has always been professional sports, but they hid it, right? So what they did to me was just a symptom of a money machine. That's all it was. It was like, how can we keep you on the court and shut you up, basically? Yeah. Right? Just get out there and do it.
And you're inconvenient, and I get this because I grew up with dyslexia, and it's the same type of thing. It's like, okay, you're not reading properly. Well, we're not going to make a whole nother curriculum for just you. right? So for you, you're saying, okay, I can't be training super, super hard and then having no recovery and then going into a game. You're saying I need something different because my skills come out best when I'm healthiest, right? And this is what I need for my health. And they said, screw that, get on mental health drugs, you're nuts, and let's see how that does for you. And if you can't make it within this cookie cutter shape, then you're not in the system. You're in or you're out.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a cookie cutter system. And if you act outside of what that system likes, you're a head case, you don't know what you're doing. Actually, I'll take it a step further. They would call my mom and my uncle, right? You know, because I didn't grow up with my dad. They would call my mom and my uncle and convince them that there was something wrong with me.
That you had a mental illness.
That I had the mental illness. Oh, listen, your son's good. He can make it to the NBA. But, you know, he's just lazy. He's just tired. Like,
he's lazy.
He's just lazy, and he's acting like he doesn't want to be here. I'm like, no, I'm not lazy, or no, do I not want to be here? I don't want to feel the way I feel. Yeah. It had nothing to do with any of that. But
if you would listen to me, the athlete speaking to you, I'm telling you it's wrong, and you're telling me it's different.
Yeah. You know, that was me at 18. Me at 35. It's like, that I wouldn't have allowed that to happen to me as an 18-year-old.
Yeah, of course, but how would you know? And that's the thing.
Yeah.
And then one thing that also is very jarring and sticks out to me right now as we face what a lot of people would call a huge mental health crisis in the United States and worldwide. And there's a million different factors that contribute to that, and the emergence of technology and social media and AI and all these things that are happening right now. But imagine that, how many years ago, Lance? 15 years ago or so? They're telling kids, you have a mental illness when they had a physical illness. You can see how this snowballs into, you know, we're trying to, in my opinion, sorry if it's an unpopular opinion, we're trying to sell drugs, right? We have these new drugs, they're mental health drugs. They shut people up, they keep you down, they keep you from thinking for yourself, they keep you in a tunnel vision, right? So how do we get people on this? If you're the big guys trying to push a drug, how are you gonna do that? And then all of a sudden, 15 years later, we're sitting here like, everybody's on antidepressants or anti-anxieties. Everybody has some sort of undiagnosed or diagnosed mental illness. And what's really the root cause here? What's going on? Yeah. So we went from, in just a decade or so, telling kids, you don't actually have a physical problem, you have a mental problem. And now we're coming back, and the newest science and the most innovative and on-point science, in my personal opinion, based on the doctors that I follow and the experiences that I've had, is that it's actually physiological altogether. Yeah. So how can we separate the mind and the body? We're one unit, right? So when our bodies start to malfunction, that's when our minds start to malfunction too. And we talk about your gut microbiome, you talk about trauma, you talk about toxins. We're all, unfortunately, in the generation, us and our parents and everyone that's on earth at this time, we are quite literally experimental. We're being given chemicals at a rate we've never been given before. Our environment is destroyed. We are being fed toxins in our food, in our air, in our cosmetics, in our fragrances, in our deodorant, you know, in our protein powder, in every single way, in the lights, like the LED lights that come, being taken out of a natural environment into an apartment, air conditioning filters. We have all these biohacking companies making sheets that make you feel grounded. And Lance and I were just talking before, it's like, okay, there's grass outside. You know, you guys can like put your feet on the grass and it's free. Right? So we're telling people they need all these devices, all these things just to feel normal. And with this evolution of technology, how are we going to keep ourselves grounded and keep ourselves healthy, right? Yeah. So at this point, it's so experimental. There's so much corporate interest and so much money being thrown at all the solutions that are being sold to you that you have to advocate for yourself and you have to advocate for your own health. And unfortunately, Lance had to learn that the hard way. Right? Like you're like,
but it's the 18, best way though. It's the best way though.
Right. And made you, of course. And you're like, I wouldn't have now let my 18-year-old self. Yeah, of course. Because think how much you've grown and learned and become. And Lance has been influential in so many people's lives, especially during the past 4 years and the health crisis that took place. And Lance providing an ideology and, you know, resources for people that was different than what was in the mainstream. And that was very quickly shut down. Right. So it's like, you know, we talk about, this is kind of going down the rabbit hole a little, but
let's go.
Indulge me for a second.
Let's go.
You know, I went to China. Yeah. You know, all these keywords I'm not supposed to say, but whatever. I went to China when I was, 16. And I remember going on Google, and my uncle, who was a journalist for the New York Times at the point, which was a journal that had a high level of credibility, and the journalists were out on the ground doing real journalistic work, and it wasn't a propaganda machine. And he was out here, and he was like, yeah, you can't search certain things on Google. It's censored. And I thought to myself, damn, this whole country is living where they're censoring the information. I can't get what I want on Google. On certain Facebook, it was like, oh, you can't see that on Facebook. You can't post that when you're in China. And I was like, that's insane. I can't believe an entire I remember feeling sorry for the people in China. I was like, that's wild. Like the control of information, it must be detrimental to their society and to their health as a community, et cetera. And I just remember thinking that was so crazy. Fast forward to now.
Same thing.
We're self-censoring. We're not putting out what we want to put out on the internet. We're doing all these things because we're afraid of being canceled. We're afraid of father algorithm shutting us down and taking away streams of income. People on YouTube get censored, right? So then it's like, okay, if you're demonetizing my business, what are people going to do? They're going to self-censor because they have to, right? So it's like, how do we regain our own freedom with our own personal health, with the way that we speak, with going out and saying, now I'm able to put out this information, not when my business is successful, not when I have a bunch of money and security. How can we be brave and just put out our information? Because someone's got to say it, right?
Well, I tell you what, the person that gave us the blueprint, and thank God that he exists, is Joe Rogan. He's the man. He's one of one. He's the most successful person at being able to give perspectives without having a bias towards any side and just letting people have their platform. I feel like he's a breath of fresh air. He's what we've needed to be able to get our points across.
Of course. And it's a really good example because people like me and Lance who run our own businesses have had experiences with the healthcare system and mental health in particular, where we've been steered down this rabbit hole that was totally a dead end in a place that we shouldn't have ever ended up in. It's like we want to be able to share our information, and somebody like Joe Rogan has given a run for their money from like the corporate media, right? And they tried to cancel him. We all remember during the last couple of years that they said he's this, he's that, he's taking horse dewormer, he's this. What happened? His audience exploded. He grew because you're right. He's inquisitive. He's unbiased. He's not married to his opinions. He's able to take on and synthesize what other people are doing, and extremely intelligent also, but his inquisitiveness and his ability to relate to other people is super important. And it's completely almost destroyed and decentralized mainstream media. And he talks about this. I don't remember this era because I'm from Generation Z, Gen Z, whatever.
How old are you again?
They call me a geriatric Gen Z. They're like, you're the grandma of Gen Z. I'm like right on the border. I'm 26 now.
Okay.
Shit. Yeah, but now we have this idea that we can spread our own philosophies and we can spread our experiences and make sure that people don't feel as alone. Like imagine some young kid going through, you know, what you went through. And imagine they could look up to you and say, shit, look what he did. And he stood up for himself. And now people are more conscious every day. Like we are going through an energetic shift on the planet where people are awakening. We're part of the psychedelic revolution. We're a part of this awakening in consciousness, this living more in harmony with nature. And we see little bits of it here and there, but it's coming, right? So now 10 years later, when we have doctors like Dr. Aruna, and I'm sure people that you've found and spoke with, and Lance has an awesome documentary we're going to talk about in a second. But if you find doctors that are, again, getting up on a platform, risking their reputation to say, it's not what we think it is. These people aren't autistic at a rate, 3,000 times what it was a few years ago because we weren't diagnosing kids. It's something's happening. There's something in the water, quite literally, right? What's in the water, guys? What's in the ocean? What's in the air? What's on the grass? What's in the food? Like we're not meant to ask these questions, and it sounds like such a conspiracy, but it's not, right? Like there's widespread studies. Oh, we found PFAS, PFAS, whatever, the forever chemicals in every water system in the United States. Okay, we're a first world country. We're supposed to be the wealthiest, most powerful nation. There's poison in our water. So what are we doing about it, right? And how do you protect yourself? And the thing that's so difficult is it's financially expensive in order to combat all the things that we should be having for free, for resources. We should be having water. We should be having clean grass, clean food. We should have governing agencies that are interested in our health versus the corporate machine that is running things. So,
but it's one of those things where, does it make money if everyone's healthy? Because if everyone's healthy, everyone's happy. Then if everyone's happy, you don't need that new car, the 2025 version of the car or the phone that just came out. You're okay with what you have because it works. Right?
Imagine if everyone was happy. What would the world look like? Can we ask the audience, what would the world look like if everyone was happy? How free would we be as a global community if everyone decided today, I'm happy. We're in Miami. I don't need a yacht. I don't need the Lamborghini. I have what I need. I'm taken care of.
I believe the system that we have, the system as we know it, will come crashing down. And like you were speaking earlier, something like more of a bartering system would come up, right? It would have to, right? But the way that we're making money now and the way that money is made now, like it depends on people having low self-esteem, insecure,
lack of creativity,
all of it.
It's another thing too. I was at dinner with my friend last night, and I look up to him as a creative influence in my life. And he's always like, "You're a creator. You're an architect of the new world," which I love when he says that because, thank you, very high compliment. But also, here's the thing: is people are inherently creative. We are creative beings, and we're programmed from the minute that we step into elementary school. When you get into first grade and you're not doodling anymore and doing art projects, you're conditioned to comply, to not ask questions, to learn, to memorize, to be obedient. And that takes away our inherent creativity. So then we go into this system. I went to a school, Vanderbilt, which is a very well-known school that people will go out into the banks, into Deloitte, McKinsey, Bain, all the best consulting firms. Those were all my peers, right? And you're told you take all these kids with all this potential, this creativity, this ability to do something unique enough to get themselves into a school where they were recognized for their talent, and then they're fed through the machine, right? So what are we doing to empower creativity and helping people? Like, if you say, what if people were happy? Would they be more creative? Would they look at the stars for longer? Would they sit by the ocean for longer? Would they sit with their thoughts for longer? Would they ask themselves, who am I? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? We're not allowed to ask those questions. You go to Vanderbilt, you go to McKinsey, you work, you have bottled water in your fridge, and that's all you can have because you work 12 hours a day. And then you hope to make $200,000-300 grand. And then what? And then you've never had a meal at home, and you don't have anyone that you can date or start a family with because you've been slaving to the system for however long. It's by design, right? So if the system, if people were happy, if people were conscious, if people were doing what they felt called to do, how would the world look? And you talk about this bartering system, and I wanted to bring up one thing, Lance. You talked about a mango once when we were at the farmer's market. So for anyone who's in Miami, Lance is king of the farmer's market out in Coconut Grove. He's the main attraction, like, in my opinion. Lance is the best guy to talk to at the farmer's market. You get in, you get a little conspiracy, you talk a little, you hang out, and then you bounce, right? With your new nice foods, you're supporting the farmers, you're supporting guys like Lance. And then once Lance was like, hey, so imagine if you tried to sell a guy a mango in Jamaica.
Can't do it.
For $7. This guy would laugh in your face. So talk about that.
Yeah, it's the system, right? It relies on scarcity. If there's a surplus of resources, then it doesn't work, right? You can't be in regions and locations where there's a surplus. It has to have a scarcity or the illusion of scarcity.
Right.
The
illusion of scarcity.
Yeah, like Bob Marley says this all the time. Well, I forget which song he says it. He's like, in an abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. Like, we have an abundance, but somehow someone tricked us to believe that we don't have enough, right?
Can you say that again?
In an abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. Right? It's, we have it all, but somehow, some way, we've been tricked to think that we don't have it all. Like, we don't have all the skill sets, the tools in our kit, in our toolbox to do what we have to do or live the life we want to live. But we have it, right? We have enough food. Like, there's not a scarcity of land. Like, Texas can feed, like, how big that land mass is. If you plant food or grow whatever gardens, or not gardens, but like crops, you'll be able to feed everybody in the world just from Texas. Right? Imagine all that in the Dakotas and in Oklahoma. There's a lot of like free space out there.
Right.
But I think it's the illusion of scarcity. But like I was telling you, you have to, if you come now to Miami and sell somebody a mango, you can't do it because it's mango season. You can literally go right up here to like Little Haiti. People have mangoes. You just pick it, right? But now people are forced to think that, does it have a sticker on it? Does it say a 9?
Yeah.
Is it organic? Oh, it doesn't say organic, so I don't know if it's organic or not.
Can you imagine somebody picking a fruit off a tree and being like, is this organic? As you picked it off with your hands. Like,
Yeah, they're looking for the stickers because it's like we need authority to tell us what's right and what's not.
Yeah.
It's like,
and maybe we can alchemize that into, we know for our highest good and best selves what we need.
Yeah.
And why not, instead of asking the sticker, asking the authority, asking the USDA, who we all have seen the corruption within these organizations, say, what do I believe? What do I think? I even come to the point, I was telling Lance a little bit, and those who know me a little bit better, I'm really sensitive to energy, and I also do a bit of like energy work and stuff like that. So if I'm holding a mango, I literally am like, is this good for me? Is this healthy? Is this polluted with chemicals? And you're the first answer that pops in your head, yes? Okay, eat it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need the sticker. You have this divine wisdom within you. We forget about this. We're so disconnected from the divine. What does your intuition say? What do you say? We're thought to think, what does this celebrity say? What does this influencer say? Tell me what I want. Tell me what I want. Why don't you tell yourself what you want?
Tell me how to think.
Why don't you check in? Why don't you say, Lance, are you hungry? I'm craving, blueberries. Okay, there's antioxidants in there that your body needs, and your body's saying, hey, Lance, you need blueberries right now.
Absolutely.
But if you look at the influencer and she's like, oh my God, I made this amazing, banana shake. And then your body's like, I didn't need potassium. I needed antioxidants. Listen to yourself, right? We're wise in a way that we don't often give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, there's knowledge that or there's riches that the flesh can't touch. Right? We think that that money is always in a physical form or in a balance when you check your ATM or whatnot, but it's in the DNA.
Totally.
It's in the DNA. We know.
Last little thing about that before we transition, because I really want to talk about the documentary. Is what would our society look like if we didn't worship money, if we didn't worship celebrity, if that wasn't the outside goal? Like, ask yourself, what are you working for? And I totally get it. We have to sustain ourselves. We have to pay rent. We have to live. We have to eat. These things are real, and we're already put in a situation where we're from a deficit, where we can never catch up. And now for our generation, we have the worst inflation we've ever seen. We can't even, here in Miami, it's unlivable. It's literally unlivable unless you're cooking all your meals yourself and you found a reasonable place to live. It's quite literally unlivable.
And a partner.
Because
it makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, no, it does.
But you know the game is taught to make us not like the other side.
Right.
Yeah, and the women are evil, the men are evil. Right?
Yeah. And this miscommunication between men and women, I see it all the time. It's like we're saying the same thing, we're speaking a different language. You could be like, hey, you want to go out for breakfast? And I'd be like, no, I want to have breakfast, but at a restaurant. And you're like, okay, we're saying the same thing, but we're arguing. You get what I'm saying? It's like there is this disconnection between men and women. And I think that also is by design to make sure that people are not coming together. Like, we're stronger in teams. We're tribal people. Like, back when our ancestors were alive, you had to be a part of the tribe. Otherwise, if you were cast out, you were done. You were toast. So your desire to be liked, your desire to be accepted is quite literally used against us all the time in the form of this groupthink, this cancel culture, et cetera, which is we're growing out of it. We're slowly growing out of it.
Yeah. But there's a push, and I think it's one of the most toxic things, but it is what it is to hate the opposite sex. It's like, well, how were you brought here?
But it's why.
Yeah, like, how did you get here?
And imagine, yeah, exactly. But imagine in a really good partnership, what I would call a sacred partnership or a divine partnership. You should be with somebody that makes you feel more yourself, more loved, more inspired. We were talking about jealousy in romantic relationships, and not about being with other people or cheating or anything like that. Jealousy of the other person's success. Between relationships and romantic relationships, even more so, but with friends too. If your friends are jealous of you, if your friends aren't jumping up and down and saying, oh my God, hell yeah, Lance, look at you crush it on social, look at you selling the protein powder, look at you doing the good work, I support you, I promote you, I'm not asking you for money in return or this in return, we support each other, we're a community. That's what you need. That's what we need to move towards as a society. And if you can model that in your own personal lives and relationships, please do. And if there's people that are holding you back and getting jealous and angry and unkind to you when you're doing well, it's okay to leave those people behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, you're growing. People stay where they are. You have the right to grow.
Yeah. You need that support, and that support is key. But I think it's a programming. It's all programming.
It is programming.
We were taught to do that. We were taught to be jealous.
And I believe it's programming quite literally in our DNA. And as our science evolves, I would assume that we could see these types of codings in our DNA in the way that we're made to think in a certain way. So how do we break free of that? How do we elevate our consciousness? How do we have our own personal freedom? And with that transition, I want to talk about, we heard the story about what happened to Lance, how he was treated by the medical system, how his career was quite literally taken from him, from the system.
But right? I kind of gained it back, though. But we'll talk about that with the documentary.
So what's your story? How you sitting here said, even though I want to tell my 18-year-old self how to do it, I'm the man I am now because of this. And the man we have sitting right here is pretty fucking cool. And I want Lance to talk about what he's done and taken all of this intensity in his life and alchemized it into something so cool that this is why we're having Lance on. We want him to talk about his story.
Yeah. So I'll start with the documentary.
Go for it.
So the documentary I have a doctor. Her name is Dr. Tamia Austin. She's a sickle cell researcher and educator. And she talks about how many athletes have died and will have perished, and athletes that have had their careers taken from them and been placed in jeopardy. And we go down the line and we talk about the professional athletes, the collegiate athletes. You know, there's one guy who was a twin, and they went to Florida State. I forget the last name. But one of the twins died, and the other twin was on the field as he's watching the other twin die.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and they
Wait, he died on the field?
Yeah, from sickle cell.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Funny story.
I'm also going to pause you really quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever said that those physical health symptoms in the beginning that you were experiencing were because of sickle cell trait.
Yeah.
And not a mental illness.
Yeah. So we kind of mentioned it. Yeah,
okay,
we kind
good.
of, but yeah. So eventually we found out it was sickle cell trait, and I was removed from the next team. But going back, so we start from her listing all the players that have died and have passed from sickle cell and have had complications. And then we go into my life story where we talk about my childhood growing up. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I did have some anxiety, but it wasn't like that was the big issue. The big issue was the body, right? So I talk about my childhood, how I grew up, where I grew up in Fort Myers in the 90s during the crack epidemic, 94 crime bill. It was hell on earth, right? It is what it is. I saw a bunch of stuff I wasn't supposed to see. But
which is trauma.
It is trauma, but then it also places you, it makes you grow up quick.
Yeah.
So when you go to a school like the school that I went to, you got coaches who are trying to be, tough and macho. That doesn't work for me, because I'm not afraid of that style. That style makes me want to fight. Right. Because you're approaching me aggressive, then come on, let's be aggressive, right? Yeah. But then I get labeled as the aggressor because I'm mimicking the actions of adults. Right. And it's like, what? It's like, what are you talking about? You started this. Right. The other coaches in the documentary never talked to me that way. Yeah. That's why we're great friends today. That's why they'll jump on the podcast or jump on the documentary without much. Like, I didn't pay them anything. Yeah. It was one call. Hey, would you want to speak? Yes, I'll do it, Lance. Of course, yes. One of my coaches talked about how one of the coaches, would call me a pussy. Yeah, called me soft.
Well, they also called you lazy, which is
call everything. Yeah. Everything. For a man, you don't call a man lazy. That's a man's bread and butter, right? Yeah. Like, you don't tell. But so I leave the school after having the coaches tell me whatever, and it kind of ties back to how we started this in the beginning. I leave that school. They tell me I have sickle cell trait at the next school. The next school they put me. They put me on IVs before the game and an oxygen tank during the game. Mm-hmm. They would manage my time, so they would play me for 4 minutes, pull me out for 4 minutes, play me, and I was able to get better. Right? And for me, this was the best thing I've ever had. It was like the best gift that God has ever given me at that point, because at the previous school, they told me that I wouldn't be able to play sports past 19. I was like, Lance, if I was you, I just wouldn't play sports. It's just my advice. But I was able to leave my second school after I transferred and played professionally in Spain. And then a month after playing in Spain, I was able to get a tryout with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now I'm going for 2 professional sports because I'm just competitive like that. You tell me I can't do something, nah.
You're gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it 5 times, 10 times, right?
Especially after someone calls you lazy.
Yeah. But for me, it was the ultimate get back. It was like, you knew who I was. I know who I was. But because I didn't fit your mold, you had to hold me back. Yeah. It's like, no, I'm gonna show you how it's done. Yeah. You call me soft, I'll show you that you're not necessarily me trying to compare myself to them, but the game that you play is not the game I play. We're not on the same level right now. I'm really on a different level, and not trying to be egotistical. It's just me saying, hey, I was raised a different way in a different environment, and it made me see the world differently and think differently, and I'm going to react differently. Totally. And after I left VCU, only one person told me sorry to my face.
Yeah, they can't.
The psychologist.
Did she?
It was him. It was a guy. He was the only person to my face. He called me up,
surprised.
Lance, I need you to meet me right now.
Really?
He was like, Lance, I apologize. I'm sorry. We should have been taking lessons from you.
Damn. How did that feel when he said that?
I was like, of course. I'm like, of course. Yeah, I knew it. Like, I wasn't wrong. And he knew it too, but he was doing a job, and I could see that he was just doing a job. He was forced to, all right? And I really don't blame him, because at the end of the day, it's like,
it's
He has a family to raise and all that. So it's like, and then now that I sit here, I'm like, oh, well, the coaches were under that same pressure. Because they would get fired if they didn't produce the same talent.
And it is the system, you're right.
It's all the system.
And it's top down.
Yeah, so everything that we talk about from the Hemtress, from your situation, like I don't know if you've mentioned that in previous episodes, but from your situation, it's all a system and everyone's playing that role. So I took my anger or semi-hatred, because I really didn't hate him.
Yeah. You took your passion.
Took my passion, right? That would be the better word. Right?
Took your passion.
I took my passion from the person and placed it on the system.
Yeah.
So now I can see it outside of it.
That's so wise, Lance.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is the lesson for people that are going through this. It's like, how can, instead of throwing bad energy back at people and saying, you did this to me, I'm doing it back to you, or to spite people, but how do you turn that into something that's better? And how do you turn it into something that's meaningful and sustainable for change? Yeah. And even the doctor that I work with had to have that type of wise, let's say, forgiveness. And you talk about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, and I love him for this, after the whole issues with the medical system in the past couple of years and the things that people were pressured to do, whichever knows what I'm talking about. He said, you have to be generous with people. You have to be forgiving. You can't say, you bullied me, you told me this, you told me that. Be generous with people. You saw something that people didn't see, and everyone is doing the best that they can, right? So let's forgive each other, let's be generous, and let's try to solve the problem. So with this doctor, she was taking in a patient that was just the most disgusting case of medical malpractice, in my opinion, right? But they were doing exactly what they were told to do. He was diagnosed with bipolar. He was put on, antipsychotics and benzos to keep him calm and pills to make him sleep and this whole cocktail. And then he started gaining weight, and they said, oh, he's untreatable. He needs more meds. And they put him on, I think he was on 20 milligrams of an antipsychotic, or he was on 100 milligrams of an antipsychotic, and the research never proved that it was effective past 20 milligrams. So he's on, 5 times the amount of antipsychotics that he ever should be, and they said it's because he's a fast metabolizer. And at the same time, he gained over 130 pounds. He was a fit, young guy, athletic guy. I mean, he gained a lot of weight. This case was heinous, right? Yeah. So then there's a transfer of care, and the psychiatrist calls, and she goes, what meds were you on? And she hears the doses, and she's floored, right? And I said, what did you do? Did you want to be like, how dare you? And how could you do this? And this is malpractice with this. And she goes, it's the system. It's not this doctor. This doctor was practicing according to the textbooks, according to what he learned and what he studied. And he said, this was my best advice. And he was genuinely trying to potentially help this kid. And that's why we have to change the system, right? So when things like this happen and we talk about silencing ourselves and self-censorship, we have to use our voices, because other kids, and how Lance mentioned what I've been through, for people that haven't, seen the early episodes of the podcast, something similar happened to me. And this is why I got into this work, is that when I was about 19 years old, the same time, I had a complete mental breakdown, psychotic episode. That's what you would call it. Went to a mental hospital. They said, you have one manic episode, you're bipolar, you have to be on drugs the rest of your life, you'll be labeled disabled, and this is the cocktail you must take, etc. This was actually in a foreign country that this happened, and then I was released by the grace of God into Dr. Aruna's care. And I feel so incredibly grateful to have found this doctor square one, because most patients end up coming to her after going through the system and being gaslit, like what happened to Lance, and being told, this isn't true, you're crazy, and this and that, and ignoring all the physiological symptoms that were happening in their body. And I was lucky enough to find this doctor. She said, no, this is not bipolar disorder. You have a methylation disorder. And for those who don't know what methylation, or MTHFR, polymorphism, is a double mutation in a gene that's responsible for methylating or detoxing. So we live in a world where we're exposed to pollution in the air, pollution in the grass and the food, et cetera, all the things we've talked about. I had record levels of jet fuel in my body when they tested me. I don't work at the airport, right? So what's going on there? I had heavy metals, and this all kind of started with not only a surgery where I was put under for 7 hours and then anesthetic, I wasn't able to detox, but then also I had to get vaccinated to go to Vanderbilt from the same vaccine that someone in my close family was very injured by, and we tried to submit medical exemptions, religious exemptions, everything we could, and I had to get these injections, and it was totally, from there, we even look back and she says this was most likely a vaccine injury. So between that, the diet, all the toxins in my diet, the trauma and the toxins, and I had some other trauma that we don't need to go into right now, but pretty severe trauma from a very abusive relationship had manifested into what we would now think of as bipolar, right? So I get on these drugs. I can't sleep right. I can't think right. I have brain fog. I gain 30 pounds. I come back to Vanderbilt. I can barely get through my classes because my brain is clouded.
Yep.
Imagine being on these your whole life. Since then, I've created an entire business. I have collaborated with a girlfriend. I've collaborated with people like you. We have all this potential that's locked up in the medical system. Think of how many Chandlars there are out there, like me. Think of how many Lances there are out there that have their careers taken, et cetera. And it's just not acceptable anymore. And we can say there's a chemical imbalance and this and that, but how do we look at your whole body, your mind-body system, your diet, your trauma, your toxins, and how do we practice in a way that is empowering for people and letting them imagine if everyone did what Lance did? Like that took a lot of strength for him to say, even though I got chewed up and spit out, I'm coming back tenfold. I'm gonna show these people what I'm made of. I'm gonna make sure that this story doesn't go untold. And that's how I feel too. And thanks for giving me the courage to come and speak about this, because it is so sensitive. You're told you're an outcast, you're told you're disabled, you're told you'll never, be able to live on your own or function in society. And I have friends that went down the path of mainstream medical and they are in hospitals. They're still in and out of the system. The parents don't know what's going on. Why don't we look at this differently? Why are we so resistant to change?
But did you have the suicidal thoughts from the medication?
The medication, I mean, I was quite literally, I'm downplaying it. I was quite literally out of my mind in a complete psychosis, totally in harm's way. My life was at risk. There were times, this is terrifying, and I hope my parents don't listen to this to think about because they hate this.
It is what it is.
But there were times where I literally would go up to a balcony and think, I bet I could fly if I jumped off this balcony. And then everyone would have thought I just had unalived myself, right? But no, I mean, I was completely out of my mind, completely in harm's way, in danger. And when I think back, it's like, there are other companies I want to make in the future that maybe we can take the original plant that made a drug like Depakote and a mood stabilizer and antipsychotic and use a whole plant method like how Lance does with his protein powders and use that to help treat symptoms of psychosis to get people stable enough where they can, detoxify and heal the root cause. I've been good for 7 years now. I'm completely off of medication. I have completely recovered. And I know this might be a provocative thing to say, but Dr. Tumala or Dr. Runa and I sometimes say, there's no such thing as bipolar disorder. What else is going on here? Is there bipolar disorder if you've detoxified, if you've dealt with your trauma, if you've assessed your genes and changed your lifestyle, how Lance talks about? This isn't the easy road. This isn't the line up for a pill road. This is how do I make sure my water is clean? How do I make sure my body is healthy? How do I make sure my food is clean? Lance sees me and, I overheat. Lance sees me walking around the farmer's market with my wagon, sweating rain or shine, because I want my fresh food. That is my medicine. I don't take drugs from pharmaceutical companies. I take, plant protein from Lance that serves as a full supplement for me, and instead of taking a synthesized molecule in a pill that you can swallow and it might have, L-theanine or ashwagandha or whatever the trendy things are right now. What about our whole foods? And what about creating something that's, bioavailable that our bodies can use? And how do you change your lifestyle to create health, to create freedom, and to create wellness? And I'd like to say thanks to Lance for allowing me the courage to speak about this, because it is still painful for me to speak about, right?
Yeah, I went through the same thing. I went through the same thing, the same things that you experienced. It's like I tell some people, you ever seen the movie Get Out?
Yes.
So you know how he's in the sunken place? When you're on those pills, you feel like you're in a sunken place.
Oh, totally.
You're moving your body, but it's like you're not fully there.
It's another thing. You quite literally can't get better on the pills. Yeah. So there's this doctor, Dr. Runa, I'm just going to shout her out again. If you know somebody that has a major mental illness, I'm talking schizophrenia, things that are considered untreatable, bipolar disorder, whatever it might be, OCD, suicidal ideation, please find them care. Dr. Runa works every single day to make this more accessible for people, to try to train other doctors, to try to move the paradigm. And I like to be her mouthpiece and to say, this is something that happened to me. This wasn't some minor case of OCD or anxiety. This was something that they thought I would be disabled forever. Yep. And that I would never get a real job and that I would never function enough. I graduated Vanderbilt with a 4.0 the last semester, and went from barely being able to keep my scholarship and am I going to get B's? Am I this? With all these drugs screwing with my brain. And then the other part, when I would work out, when I would do a soul cycle or whatever you want to call it class, after I was off the drugs for a year, the fat cells, as they were burning, I had the side effects of the drugs. So all of a sudden I'm trying to write papers, my brain's clouded, I'm lethargic, I have to nap. these drugs are poison.
Oh, yeah.
They are simply poison. I'm done hiding it anymore. And I hope that people are able to know that there are ways to recover. These are real. I get it for families that they're scared, right? You want your kids safe. If I just said, oh, I thought it was maybe cool to jump off a balcony, I get it. You're in harm's way.
Yeah.
You need to be safe. We have to heal in a safe environment. But let's give our family members and our community members the care that they deserve. Let's give them the opportunity to make a brand, to speak about their experiences, to do the things that they want to do to push society forward. Because we're standing at a launch pad right now. Like, everything is crazy. We know that. Everything's unstable. There's this divide and conquer. There's this war mindset. There's this us against them mindset. We talk about Bob Marley, and we can go into that, but love heals all, right?
Yeah, it does.
And there is unity here, and we don't have to be pinned against each other or jealous of our partners or jealous of someone else's success. Let's empower each other. Let's say, what do you want to do with your life? Let me ask you, as somebody that's listening to this podcast, what do you want to do with your life? What are you doing right now? Is this feeding your soul? You know, and then how do you do something that can sustain you? We talk about what are you good at, what can you make money at, et cetera, that can sustain you, that feels good and feels like when you lay yourself down to sleep at the end of your life, that you feel like you did what you came here to do. That's so important. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that in school. What do you feel called to?
Yeah, man, this is, this life, man, it presents obstacles, right? And every obstacle is necessary. It's not like, woe is me. It's that path was for you, and you got to walk down that path. And, the things that you figured out was for you and for you to tell and for you to give people that experience from your perspective.
Totally.
From my perspective, a lot of people may not have seen people go through hard times on a platform, right? Most people, they suffer in their living room. They suffer in silence, right? Well, I was on a platform. Like, I was on a Division I basketball team,
right.
And people were writing on this. Like, I have newspaper articles that would talk about me, right? I have blogs that talk crazy about me, right? And to be able to do that and to be ashamed and to be shamed, not ashamed, but to be shamed in public and still walk with your head up is a different situation, right?
Right.
Even to the point where the coach that placed me on those medications, his daughter died of suicide, mental issues, 2021 or 2020 during the pandemic era.
It's horrible.
Yeah, and I feel bad for her, right? Or for them. Even though that situation happened, I still feel bad because I have a heart. Like,
compassion.
Yeah, I have compassion. Like, I don't wish evil on anyone who's done evil to me because I understand that evil is the system, and you're just playing in the system, and you don't know anything other than the system. So I get it, right?
Yeah.
But will I hide from talking about it? No. I'm gonna tell it. If you played that part, you played that part. It is what it is. I've forgiven you.
Yeah.
But I know I'll never get that apology, and I really don't look for it. I think my apology is the fact that I was able to stop playing sports after not making it for the Jacksonville Jaguars and go back 5 years later and not need an IV, not need an oxygen tank.
Right.
I played every practice. I used to sit out practice D1 and I still score points, but I didn't have to sit out practice. I played full games. At 29, 30, my body was brand new. I started eating cleaner. I started, doing breath work. I started drinking cleaner water, sunbathing. Sunbathing is probably the number one thing that I've ever done to make myself better.
Right. We all are told to hide from the sun.
Well, you know why?
Tell me why.
Tell me why,
Lance.
So the same medications that we're talking about now, statins, diabetes medications, a lot of anxiety medications, they're phototoxins and they have photoallergens.
Right.
So you mix those photoallergens with the sun, good luck.
Right.
You're creating free radicals times 1,000,000.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So
really good point.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of people don't sunbathe or engage with the sun. And I used to have a course that would teach people about this, but I kind of got a little shy because I didn't want to get in trouble, right? But I would teach people, but I'll be bringing it back in my 7 Natural Doctors.
Nice.
Where, thank you. I'm going to have it in all video form. So I'm going to go through the steps of, sun hygiene. What should you do ahead of time? What should you do during? What should you do after?
Nice.
When to take a shower to absorb the most vitamin D? When to not wash it off?
Love
right?
that. We need a course. Yeah. Who wants a course on the sun?
Oh,
I think we all want to know how to lay in the sun and feel healthy.
Exactly. And how much time? What time of the year? How can you tell by your shadow if there's vitamin D available?
Whoa.
Like, there's a lot of different
Cool.
things, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I've immersed myself in a new form of education. I know it goes against a lot, but vitamin D was the number one marker for people who had the situation in 2020.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So,
And the sun makes over 2,000 chemicals or components for your body and your health, and vitamin D is just one of them.
Yeah.
You make melatonin,
Yep.
all these other things. The sun, imagine that we are not separate, even though we live in boxes and we live outside of nature.
Yeah.
We're not separate from the ecosystem. We're
not.
born of this ecosystem. We're animals, and animals need the sun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's 200 genes that lie dormant if you're vitamin D deficient or sun deficient, and it's not a vitamin; it's a hormone. You
Right,
need it.
exactly.
It is essential for life.
And let me tell you, ladies, on your cycles, if you're taking vitamin D, you're gonna have less cramps. Your body's gonna regulate your hormones more efficiently.
Yeah.
It's something that I do right around, even though I live in Miami, right around when I'm gonna have my cycle. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take vitamin D because it's a hormone. It's gonna help me. Okay, Lance, I want you to plug your documentary.
Okay.
Tell us what we should expect. Give us a
Okay.
little preview, and then
Yeah.
plug your social media and your brands.
Yeah, so my documentary is going to be called The Monster Within. It's from a newspaper article that was written on me in 2012. It goes down the path of my triumph with sickle cell and how I overcame it. And it's not me telling the story, it's about 11 people telling the story, and I just chime in every now and then to make
Cool.
it run itself, to streamline the process. But yeah, I'm Captain Planet. You can find me on all platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. It's going to be a fun one. I got the 7 Natural Doctors
Nice.
coming out on the Teachable course. I've had it since 2019, but I'm bringing it back. I know how to work Premiere Pro and Adobe a lot better now. Before I wasn't that good with it.
Crushing it.
Yeah. So I'm good now. But yeah, I'm teaching the people what I know and making sure that no one has to go through what I went through. I think I suffered so that everyone else doesn't have to suffer.
Nice.
Yep.
And that's how we turn darkness into light, right?
That's how you do it. That's called alchemy.
Alchemy.
Alchemy. We
Nice.
said it at the same time. You're like,
Nice. So I'll say follow Lance. He's got awesome health information. I know based on my own circle that a lot of people are struggling with their health right now. Educate yourself. Follow people like Lance. He knows a lot. Follow Hemptress. We try to put out information about health and wellness, about what you put on your skin actually affects your body. And we have products to help you with those. Lance has an awesome protein powder that I swear by. I've converted so many of my friends. They said this is all you need. You don't need to take supplements.
Yeah.
And he uses whole foods to re-nourish the body. And Lance is an athlete, so take it from him. So follow us and stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Lance.
Thank you.
Nice.